Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to this video where I'm going to talk about the 49ers offseason plan and how I feel that they haven't necessarily backed themselves into a corner here, but they're really on a mission now where they have to thread the needle. And what I mean by that is when you look at how free agency started, uh, the 49ers lost a lot more than they gained, and they really didn't get any starter caliber players or players that you just assume will be starting. And so a lot of times in free agency, the team will try to find starters. If there's holes, try to find a starter because when you're dealing with free agents, there is an element of this player is a proven player. He's at least excelled in another system if you're paying top dollar for one of these guys. But it doesn't always work out that way. So there still is an element of uncertainty when it comes to signing a veteran free agent. And I just look back to 2019. 49ers made a move they really targeted Quan Alexander. They needed another linebacker. They went, they got him, and then he had some injuries, and so he never really performed at a high level. And in fact, that season, Dre Greenlaw was a rookie. He ended up starting a lot of that year and really proved himself to be a starter caliber. And then the 49ers were able to trade Quan Alexander. But Javon Hargrave is another example where 49ers 2 years ago, they were pretty much pushed their chips to the center of the table. They had to get owner approval to go out and get a big time defensive tackle. And Hargrave was okay. He was good, I think, with his first year with the 49ers, but then last year got injured. And then that price tag was so high, they ended up releasing him. So it doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does. Charvarius Ward had a really good season, his first year, an even better season the next year. And then last year, for a lot of reasons, we all know them, a lot of personal reasons out of everybody's control. His play did suffer. So what the 49ers have done this offseason is they've basically ignored free agency. And they're putting all their eggs in that basket of the NFL draft. And they do have 11 picks coming up. They have 4 picks in the top 100. They have 8 picks in the top 160. So there is an opportunity, a big time opportunity for them to add a couple of defensive linemen, a couple of offensive linemen, um, maybe a tight end, maybe a running back, maybe a wide receiver, a linebacker. I mean, I could pretty much tick through cornerback. That's a need as well. I could go through pretty much every position group on the team. And there's a need for the 49ers, maybe with the exception of quarterback, where it looks like they have their 3 guys. They're happy with Brock Purdy, with Mac Jones, and with Tanner Mordecai. So I would assume they'll keep 3 quarterbacks on their roster, and those would be the 3. They could also add somebody as an undrafted rookie. They could do that at running back too, where it seems like they've had more success with undrafted rookies than they have with draft picks at the running back position. But every draft is important. 49ers, I would say that they're drafting in the 8 drafts that John Lynch has run as the general manager of the team. It's been a mixed bag, but I would say it's been a lot better than it's been worse. And let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. Yes, they have had some high profile draft picks, first round draft picks who have not performed up to the level that you would expect a first rounder to perform. And specifically, Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, Javon Kinlaw, and then, of course, the big one, Trey Lance. And the one with Trey Lance hurt because they not only gave up their 12th pick of that year, 2021, to move up to number 3, they also gave up their first round picks in each of the next 2 years. So it came with a huge price tag. And yes, Brock Purdy's quick ascension into becoming one of the better quarterbacks in the league, that softens the blow a lot, but you just can't turn back the hands of time and get those first round picks that you gave up to go get Trey Lance at number 3. But I think the wins in the draft have far outweighed the losses. And when I look at it over those 8 drafts, they've basically signed or drafted 15 guys who either got really big second contracts and to leave the team, or guys who are perennial Pro Bowl types players who remain with the team. And so those 15 guys in order, and we can discuss the semantics of this, but anytime a guy ends up becoming, getting a big contract, and that's why I put Jalen Moore in this group. He was never a full-time starter for the 49ers, but when he was on the open market, he gets 15 million per year to sign with Kansas City, and he's targeted to be their left tackle. So that tells you right there that you have to say that's a good draft pick. So the 15 draft picks in 8 years that I'm referencing, some of them are obvious. George Kittle, DJ Jones, Mike McGlinchey, because he signed that big deal with the Denver Broncos, Fred Warner, DJ Reed, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Dre Greenlaw, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, who would have been 1,000-yard receiver last year had he not gotten thrown out of that final game of the season against the Cardinals. Aaron Banks signed a big deal with the Packers. I mentioned Jalen Moore, Diamador Lenore, who the 49ers signed to an extension this last season, and then Talanoa Hufanga and Brock Purdy. So those are the 15. And then also, what the 49ers have done in the past is they've always looked a year ahead. Who's coming up on a contract? Who might we not be able to re-sign? Or maybe they already have determined, you know what, we're not going to re-sign him. Let's draft the replacement a year before we need him. And so, the jury is still out on some of these guys, but you'd have to say pretty early returns were positive when it comes to the players from last year's draft. I'm going to put Ricky Pearsall in that group. He showed some flashes, and then just watching him in the offseason program and in training camp, I think he's going to be a good player if he can stay healthy. That might be the big question, though, with him. But last year's draft class, Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, who will be a starter here year two, unless something dramatic happens, unless they take a cornerback maybe at number 11. Dominic Pooney was a starter from day one, looks like a really good player. Malik Mustafa is a starter at safety. And then Isaac Guerendo, who basically made the 49ers decision to trade Jordan Mason, made that kind of easy for them because they already had their guy in place. One observation on Jordan Mason. A lot of people, it's about 50-50, I think. A lot of people are saying 49ers should not have traded Jordan Mason. But it's a difficult thing because what would it look like? For those who say they shouldn't have traded him, are they saying that they should have tendered him at that second round level and then just had him play 1 year at $5.3 million, make him the highest paid backup in the NFL, or sign him to the contract that the Vikings signed him to? Either way, I think that was more money than the 49ers were willing to spend for a backup running back when they already had Isaac Guerendo on the team behind Christian McCaffrey, who apparently is healthy and should be ready to go unless there's another setback. So it's not just so easy of should they have traded him. Once they put the second round tender on him at $5.3 million, it was pretty obvious, I think, that the 49ers weren't going to pay him. They were cutting costs. They were trying to line up their cap for the future when the big things coming that John Lynch referred to, Brock Purdy's contract, and then an extension for George Kittle. So it was clear they weren't going to keep Jordan Mason at that contract. Then it becomes, the Vikings were willing to pay him a good sum of money. And if the 49ers hadn't put the second round tender on him and they tried to re-sign him, I'm sure the Vikings would have gone higher because they also gave up some draft capital to acquire him. So that's kind of the thought process there. But when I talk about threading the needle for the 49ers in this draft, what I'm talking about is that typically they do try to draft for their needs a year from now. This year, because of what they did or didn't do in free agency, they need guys to step in and play right now. They need immediate impact players. And that's something that they've always kind of held in their back pocket in the past of let's draft this guy and then take our time with him and play him when he's ready because we already have a starting caliber player in that position who might be leaving in free agency a year from now. So maybe we'll need him more year two. But I think what the 49ers need from this draft, and it's different than any other draft that they've had, is that they will need guys to step in now. They will need 8 guys, 8 rookies to win spots on the 53-man roster because that'll lower the costs for the future. That'll also lower the average age of this team. And then also just the fact is that they right now have a starter, I suppose, at every position. Maybe their nickel defense, you don't know who that's going to be, that third cornerback. But they have starters right now that if you're going to be a contender, you need to find players who are better. And that's, defensive line, that's offensive line, perhaps. And so that is the pressure that John Lynch and the 49ers face this year is that they just can't look ahead one year and say, hey, let's draft this guy. We think we can get him ready in a year to play. No, they need immediate impact from this year's draft. So that's the corner the 49ers have backed themselves into a little bit just with their approach of free agency. It was an approach that they telegraphed, talking about getting cheaper, getting less expensive, and getting younger because you have to be able to account in the future for some big money deals that are coming. Last year, the 49ers were $85 million over the cap as far as spending. And so you kind of have to balance that out. And this year, they're going to be up around that number, 80 million or so in dead money, which is money that's already been paid, but it just hasn't accounted for on the cap as of yet, but it will this year. So that in essence, in one offseason, kind of balances out what the 49ers were doing. Last year, they were go, go, go. This year, they're pulling back the throttle and seeing if they can still be competitive. They have the last place schedule, so their schedule doesn't look too difficult at all. Also, they're coming off a 16-11 season. So, is this a rebuild? I hesitate to call it a rebuild because they still have high-priced, quality veteran players at basically every position group. But it just says to me that this draft, we always say, boy, it's an important draft. This year, it really is because you're not looking necessarily to the future. Of course you are, but in this draft, they need to see immediate results and they have to collect immediate dividends from their 2025 draft class.